All right, so let's go ahead and go over your bell ringer. Okay, so the first one, this one was very similar to one I put on your screener. And there's just some interesting answers I got from some people on that. So we wanted to make sure we put another one on there so we could practice this. Now, can I put together the T and the 7? Can I put together the T and the T as 2 T's? No. What do I need to do first? I need to get rid of the what? Parentheses. Yeah. Okay. So I want you to show how you draw those little lines to show you're going to do the distributive property, okay? And remember, a little trick we talked about is just circling this number right here to show that it's not 2, it is what? -2, okay? Is it not showing on yours? There, thank you. Okay. So if I go ahead and distribute, I've got T, I'm going to bring that down, and I'm also going to put my 1 in front of it. Now what's 7 times T? 7 T's. And 7 times -2, what is that? So please don't write plus -14. We want to try to put it in simplest form and just write -14. Okay, and then remember last week we circled every term with the sign in front of it and then combine like terms. So how many T's do we have? 8 T's. And what's left? So should I put plus -14? What would be the simplest form? Just -14. Who got that on that one? Okay, if you didn't, what do? You write redo out to the side and do what? Redo it. Okay, correct it. Okay, next one. Let's go ahead and erase this one so that's out of the way. So I need to get rid of what again first? Parentheses. So I have -17 times x, and is this -17 times 7? That's a really common mistake when people distribute a negative to a negative. So just circle that term to point out, is this really positive or is it negative? Okay, so what's -17 times x? -17x's. Okay, guys, everybody answer this one, okay? What's -17 times -7? 119. Positive or negative? So we write plus 119. Now bring down the rest of the problem. Okay, now what? Combine like terms. I'm going to circle each term with the sign in front of it so I get all the right signs. If I start with my 1s, what's 119 plus 22? 141. Okay, 17 negative x's versus 5 positive x's. Who's going to win? Negatives by how far?
12.
So minus 12 x's. Who wrote their answer like that? Does that mean that yours is wrong? So how did you write yours? So negative 12 x's plus 141. Are those the same thing? Do you guys remember what property that is that talks about how we can change the order as long as they have the correct signs? Do you remember? The commutative property. Yep. The commutative property. Because we're reading everything as combining, which is like addition, because we're talking about, are we combining positives or negatives? Okay, go ahead and put that away. And then I need you guys to go and finish writing your title for the notes today. So today we're going to practice finding the slope of linear lines. So let's do a vocabulary review from last week. Raise your hand. What does linear mean? What does linear mean? What kind of line? A straight line. And why is it straight? You can look at your notes if you need to. Why is it straight? Yeah, so it has a constant rate of change. Okay? So linear lines and slope. Now we talked about rate of change last week. Slope and rate of change, go ahead and write this below it, are really the same thing. Slope and rate of change are the same thing. Okay. Slope is more when we're just looking at how steep a line is. Rate of change, if you're doing that, we use that when we're relating it to a context. So for example, like you make $10 per hour. You're comparing how much money per hour. That's a context. Context means a real life situation. Okay? All right, I need you guys to write down the definition in that orange yellowish box. Okay, so slope or rate of change describes the steepness of a line or how fast something is changing. So we're going to watch a little video clip here that introduces what is slope, okay? So go ahead and pay attention during this. If there's something you want to write down during the video in your notes, you're welcome to. Well, really quickly, we need to review just some vocabulary here and different ideas. So to make a line steeper, you can tell when a line is steeper if you have a greater rise than the run. Okay, so like let's say I have a slope of 5/2 versus a slope of 2/5. Which one of those is going to be steeper? Which one, Spencer?
The 5/2.
Yeah, the 5/2 because the rise is greater than the run. You're increasing up or down faster than you are to the right. Okay? Who remembers what's a ratio? Go ahead and write that word down too. What is a ratio? This is a vocabulary word from last year. Anybody remember? So ratio means, go ahead and put this down, a comparison of two things. So slope is also a ratio because we're comparing rise to run. And so because that's a ratio, see our 5/2? Would I want to turn that into 2.5? No. I want to compare that as I rise 5 times, I run 2 times. So slope, we're not going to change that to a mixed number when we're just looking at the slope of a line. We're leaving it as improper fractions. Just make sure, like he said in the video, that it's always in simplest form. Okay, what does context mean? Talked about this word a bit this year so far. What does a context mean? Put that word down, okay? No one? So context just means like a real life situation, a real life scenario. And if we're ever talking about finding the slope in a real life situation, then generally we're going to be using the rate of change. So like again, you make $10 per hour. We have that label there. Okay, let's go ahead and start practicing. Well, we got to put this down first, sorry. So you have this part, right? The rise over run. We wrote that down from the video. Yes? Whoops. Go back. Will you just make sure you add in the plus and minus on those? Okay. Now, something that is the same thing as rise over run is this. So write that down next. Change in y is the same as rise. Now show me with your hand, which way do we rise? Which directions do we rise? Up or down? Now think of a coordinate plane. What way does the y-axis go on a coordinate plane? Up and down, right? So when we say we want to find out how much something has risen, we're looking from one point to another point. So we're saying like, what's the change in their y values? Because their y values show how much it has changed going up or down. That's why we call it change in y. This one here, this triangle symbol, that's a Greek symbol, okay? And instead of writing out the change in y, that's what that triangle means. I think that one's called delta. So it's change in y. That's what that triangle is. So then same thing, this one here, change in x. Show me which way the x-axis goes. Left and right. And which way do you run? Left and right. And then same thing, this means change in y. So you'll also see slope written like that. Okay, m. M means slope. You can just write m equals slope. Or if we're talking about a context, then it's also rate of change. So remember this equation we talked about a little bit last week? Y equals mx plus b. What's m? M, that's the m right there. That's your slope or your rate of change. Depends on, are we just talking about how steep is this line or what's the rate of change in the line? Okay, now we've got a couple ways we can remember rise over run, because here's the two most common mistakes with slope. The first common mistake is people switching rise and run and doing run then the rise. Okay, I need a volunteer. You want to come up? Okay, come up. Come sit on the chair. This is just a quirky way to remember it, okay? All right, so your job is to run, but you can't move off the chair. And the chair can't move off the ground. Can you run?
No.
Okay, now what if I say rise? What would you do? Now can you run?
Yes.
Okay, run. So just a quirky way there. Think of the saying, you have to rise before you can run. Can't run when we're sitting down. Another way is see how I comes before you in the alphabet. Okay, but we have to rise, then run. It's the Y that's changing first, then the X. And that's backwards of an ordered pair, isn't it? Okay. All right, the second mistake comes in with telling whether we have a positive slope or a negative slope, because lots of people, they just start at whatever side. In fact, they just look at where's the lowest point, and they always. Okay, so this is where we look at is a positive slope, negative slope. You can also have a slope of 0 or an undefined slope. So what side do we always start on the line? The left. So here's my runner Tom, he's on the left. As Tom moves along that trail, where's he going? Up or down? So this is a what kind of slope?
Positive.
Okay, where do I start here? The lowest point?
No.
We start at the left. As he goes on the trail here, where's he going?
Down.
So what kind of slope is that? We always want to look at the picture and decide, is my slope positive or is it negative first? Now guys, what about this one? What kind of trail is that?
Straight.
Well, those are straight too, right?
Flat.
Flat. What does flat ground mean? Huh? What does flat mean? What does slope describe? Look at your definition you wrote down at the very first. What does slope describe? How steep a line is. How steep is that line? It's not steep. Does it have a steepness? No. Okay, who in here has ever used a level? What's a level, guys? It's got some kind of liquid in the middle, and like if you're hanging up a picture, you put a level on it to make sure that it's what? Straight. What else have you used a level for? Huh? What, do you think they used a level when they built this building?
No. Probably.
What might it have been if they didn't use a level when they did the floor? Do you think they just come and like, here, we're going to put cement here and just dump it and that's good? What does the level do? It makes sure the ground is flat. So every time you're using a level, you're basically making sure that there is a slope of 0. Okay? All right, now the undefined slope, oops, let's go back. My undefined slope, can runner Tom do this?
No.
Run straight up?
No. It just falls.
Run straight? And we're going to talk about later today why this is undefined. But this is called undefined. So draw just a quick sketch of each of these and write above it whether it's positive, negative, slope of 0, or undefined. This needs to be spelled correctly. Okay? Undefined needs to be spelled right. And then just once above all of it, put left to right. We read it from left to right. You can always too, like when you're drawing a line, just go to the left side. Here's Tom, right? His crazy hair and hat, right? Or a person, whatever you want. And as they go along that, they're going up. Which way are they running? Okay, so we can have a slope that's positive, negative, 0, or undefined. Okay, so we kind of looked at this already from the video, but say you started with this, sorry, I'm not doing very good, this thing. I have to remember to press a button before. Let's say I wanted to use these 2 points to find the slope from here to here. Will that give me the slope of the line? How much does that go up? This is at -9. This is at +4. What's the rise of that? 13. What's the run? This is at -4, and this is at +9. 13 over 13. What does that simplify to? 1/1. Well, what if I decide, no, I want to do this point and this point? So rise, then run. How much do I rise here? Let's see, 1, 2, 3, yeah. How much do I run? What do you notice about those two ratios? Yeah, they're both 1/1. So what's the easiest to pick? The points that are furthest apart or the points that are closest? How come? Why would we want to pick the ones that are closest? Yeah, it should already be in simplest form, okay? All right, so let's practice finding the slope of these. Now again, we read it from left to right. So here's what I want you guys to do on your paper today. I need you to get used to the M is for slope. So I would want you to write M equals. Okay? Second, just again to get used to it, I want you to go along the line and mark every perfect point. Now, perfect point means where it crosses all four corners. Like that would be a point, but that's not on the line. Okay? So I can see there's a point here. There's a point there, 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 and there. Do you guys see any other points? What do you notice about all those points? They're all what? Besides they're all on the line. What do you notice about their distance from each other? They're all the same distance. That's another way to know if you found the right points. Okay, then what is slope? Rise over run. Where do I start? The left. So I'm going to rise, then run. Always look at what the lines are counting by. Everyone last hour said it goes up 2/1. Is that what this is counting by? So I'm at -8 up to -4. How much did that rise? 4. How much did it run? 2. Now, so the slope is 4/2, but that's not my final answer. I need to put it in what? So what does that simplify to? 2/1 or 2. Like if you were going to write this in the equation for M, you wouldn't put 2/1. You would just put 2. Okay? We would only want to show it as 2/1 if you needed to graph. Okay, so let's look at this next one here. Where do you guys see a point? Where's the point?
On every other one.
Okay, so I for sure see one there. Do you guys? And you have to look really closely on some on your practice today. And again, that's why I use, okay, are these all evenly spaced? Because that helps me see, did I pick the right points? Okay, what side do I start on? So I'm going to do rise, run. Not run, rise. Rise, then run. What's the rise? What's the run? So what's my slope? And I knew from the start, was the line positive or negative? If it was negative, I would have gotten my negative there right at the first. People forget the negative a lot. Okay, now this one. Is this a positive slope or a negative slope? So I'm going to write M. Oh, gosh. I got to remember to hit the pen. We'll just blame it on Rylan. So first thing, you put a negative. Okay, now mark your points. Here's one. There's one. There's one. Now if they're evenly spaced, that should be 1 too, huh? Okay, where do I start? Do I start at the bottom of the line? Start at the left. So down, how many? 3. And right, how many?
2.
So it's -3 halves. Down 3, 2 to the right. You could put the negative right in the middle too, and that's the same. They just both can't be negative because what's a negative divided by a negative? Now guys, here's what would happen if somebody started from the right side. So I'm going to start here and go to here. I go up 3, left 2. Up 3 is what? Positive. What's left 2?
Negative.
So here's the point though. A ton of people forget that moving left is negative. If you will always go left to right, you will always be moving to the right side on your run. Always. And the run will always stay positive. So go from left to right. Now again, remember, like you said here, you're comparing rise to run. So should this be a mixed number? No. We want to compare I rise -3, I run 2. It's rise over run. Okay, so this is an example of one that is a context. So normally, again, from a context, we would find the rate of change. So I'm going to show you here, what does that mean? Like, what's the difference here? This is what the difference would look like if you did the answer. So I used 2 points, rise, then run. How much did I rise?
2.
4. I rose 4. How much did I run?
2.
2. What does 4 over 2 simplify to?
2.
2 over 1. So that would be the slope. Now, if I say, what's the rate of change? I can't just put 2 over 1. Even though it's the same thing, I've got to add to it. I have to relate it to the context. So 2 what? Remember, it's change in y over change in x. So we look at the y-axis first. So 2 degrees Fahrenheit per what?
Hour.
Yeah, per 1 hour. That's the only difference between your slope and your rate of change. Your rate of change should have labels to relate it to the context. Okay, now let's talk about if you have a horizontal line versus a vertical line. So today, and I will teach you later, there's a really cool video explaining, the vertical line, why it's undefined. But right now, today we're just going to use the formula. So how many points do you need on a line to find the slope? 2. So I'm going to pick any 2 points right over here that I want. I'm going to choose those 2. And I'm just going to start on the left. How much do I rise? 0. How much do I run? Now this is not in simplest form. If you left it like that, that would be wrong. Go ahead on your calculator. What is 0 divided by 2? What is it? 0. Now, I think that's way more complicated than just logically looking at the line and saying, this is a flat line. So what's the slope of a flat line? 0. Okay, now let's do it for undefined. So again, pick 2 points. Here's 2 points. I'm going to start with the bottom one since there's not one further to the left or right. How much do I rise?
2.
How much do I run?
0.
Okay, now that one again, you cannot leave your answer like that. That is not in simplest form. I want everyone to type this in your calculator and tell me what it says. Divide by 0 error. or undefined. What does yours say?
Divide by 0.
Okay, so because you can't take something and divide it into no groups. That's not possible. It doesn't just disappear. Okay, so this is undefined. Now again, later I'll explain better why that is with slope. We just don't have time today. Okay, so you're going to be practicing this today. So on each graph that you guys get today, you're going to pick how many points? 2, and find the rise over the, decide your signs first. And today I would really like you to go across the whole line and mark every point and make sure those points are evenly spaced apart. Okay? Do you want to pass out their worksheets? So also, reminder, it's a worksheet, so where do you correct it? On Canvas. Or there's a copy up there you can go and look at when you're done and correct it. Okay? You need to show your work by doing those points and show your triangles. Then you submit it on Canvas. Okay? And that's due today.